Good morning, team. We are now going to be focusing on the infrastructure, mean time between failure and life cycle cost validation. Bintang, we need to transition from component description to risk mitigation and material science. To tell the system dependency on the permanent Y element, specifically addressing material cost for the rail, slipper, fastening, ballast, and the maintenance of ground integrity under quantified stress.
Thank you, Yusuf. The design premise is maximum durability and quantifiable surface life. Our rails are specified as hardened steel with a minimum tensile strength of 159.6 kSi, essential for resisting fatigue and wear caused by the high frequency axle loads and minimizing the need for frequent rail grinding.
Bintang, while the high tensile strength of the rails is excellent for fatigue, it makes the rail grinding process more intensive. What is the expected rate of lateral wear and vertical wear we are budgeting for? This directly impacts our rail replacement program timeline.
We project our lateral wear rate below $0.5 and vertical wear below $0.2 per year each under normal conditions, pushing the rail replacement program beyond 25 years. This longevity is supported by our substructure. The ballast is granite specified with a high angularity index and low deleterious content, maximizing interlock and minimizing ballast falling susceptibility. The ballast depth is critical at 350 mm to ensure a minimal bearing pressure on the subgrade.
Let's quantify the stability mechanism. How are the slippers and fastening ensuring the dimensional stability of the track, particularly the groove?
Our slippers are monolithic pre-stressed concrete, chosen for their high mass and resistance to shattering. The clamping force is provided by the fastenings, specifically resilient clips designed for a minimum tow load of 12 kN per fastening point. This high tow load directly correlates with the force required to resist gauge widening and rail creep under maximum thermal and braking forces. Maintaining the nominal track gauge is non-negotiable for safety and ride quality.
Bintang, speaking of dimensional stability, how do you manage the electrical insulation necessary for my track circuits and axle contacts? The concrete slipper itself acts as a conductor if the insulation fails.
Excellent point on the circuit integrity. We use insulating rail joints at all block section boundaries. More importantly, the rail pad and associated insulators in the fastening systems are made of high dielectric materials, ensuring the required electrical resistance between the two rails is maintained above the signaling system's threshold, preventing track circuit shunting.
Let's turn to the geotechnical risk management. The use of geogrid over black cotton soil is good, but how do we manage the risk of catastrophic erosion and score around our civil assets?
For bridges and viaducts, we have strict shower protection protocols involving riprap and deep foundations at abutments. The structural integrity is continuously monitored via SHM or structural health monitoring using a network of strain gauges and accelerometers placed on the pre-stressed concrete gliders and bearing pads. Data streams are analyzed for anomalous vibrational signatures that precede structural failure.
The structural monitoring data is vital for my asset life cycle management. My team needs a clear acceptance result for vibration data to justify costly intervention maintenance, like replacing pilot bearing pads or major ballast undercutting. Furthermore, the logistic for possession time must be optimized around these data triggers.
Baran, on the issue of remote asset communication, how is the power reliability maintenance for the condition monitoring system and the hot box director in rural areas?
We use independent power feeder system separate from the traction power. The HPT and wheel impact load detector units rely on industrial grade uninterruptible power supply with solar cycle charging backup, ensuring continuous data acquisition despite short duration traction power outages. All data is transmitted via fiber optic cables and monitored centrally through SCADA, validating the health of both the rail and the wheel interface.
Interruption. Bintang, the performance of the OSIS is linked to the structural integrity of the category of the catenary mesh. Are the foundations of this mesh designed to resist significant wind loading, minimizing contact wire displacement, which would otherwise cause unacceptable pantograph instability?
Absolutely. The catenary mesh foundations are reinforced concrete piles designed for a maximum wind load or gust factor of 150 km per hour. They feature automatic tensioning devices to ensure the contact wire maintains a consistent height and lateral position, providing a stable platform for your pantograph interface, thereby reducing arcing and extending the MTBF of the contact wire.
Excellent discussion on the independencies. We have established robust protocol for NRT control, gauge maintenance, geotechnical stabilization using GeoGrid and sophisticated condition monitoring. Rafid, the responsibility of executing the intervention maintenance fall to you, informed by the quantifiable data from the well and HPD.
Understood, Yusuf. We will finalize the seasonal drainage inspection protocol and align our rail grinding schedule precisely with the wheel data to maximize the life of the rails. Our focus remains on proactive asset management to minimize degrade mode operation.
Thank you, Tim. We have validated the physical and monitoring infrastructure. We proceed now to rolling stock mechanics and dynamics. The Borneo line has two distinct demands: high density passenger transport and heavy mineral unit train, common across the Indonesian rail network. We must select the most suitable rolling stock, optimizing both performance and compliance with our infrastructure specification. Let's begin with the special foundation. The bogie. Please detail its critical function.
Thank you, Yusuf. The bogie is the vital component bridging the car body and Bintang's rail. It has four primary functions, like load support, guidance steering the wheel, damping vibration absorption, and transmitting traction and braking forces. Our standard Indonesian bogies utilize a two-stage suspension. The primary suspension between the axle box and the bogie frame handles initial impact, often using coil or rubber elements. The secondary suspension between the frame and the car body uses air springs in modern emus and executive coaches, which is key to comfort and stability.
Route 3. Our field experience shows that bogie hunting is a major concern for high-speed passenger coach, especially on route. How does this design, for example, the KAI standard, K5 or K8 bogie, manage the severe lateral oscillation?
Okay. Modern passengers bogies are equipped with an anti-yaw damper mounted diagonally. This hydraulic shock absorber actively suppresses that low-frequency lateral oscillation that begins at high speeds, significantly improving stability and minimizing flange wear on curves. For our freight wagons, we use similar, more robust designs like the Barber S2 3-piece bogie, which prioritize rigidity and durability to withstand massive maximum axle loads.
Understood. Let's evaluate the vehicle option for the Alpha line. We must pass between locomotive EMU and DMU.
For the core high-density commuter service, the EMU electric multiple unit is superior. Like those used in Jabodetabek, EMUs utilize distributed power. The traction motors are spread across the units, allowing for significantly faster acceleration and deceleration. This is the optimal choice for short station intervals, while a classic locomotive like the CC206 offers flexibility to haul various passengers, coaches, or freight wagons. Its slow acceleration and longer station dwell times make it inefficient for high-density commuting. DMUs, diesel multiple units, offer operational flexibility since they don't rely on Bintang's OSIS, but their energy efficiency is lower, and noise pollution is higher than the EMU. Therefore, EMUs are non-negotiable for our core passenger route.
From a signaling perspective, the fast acceleration of the EMUs is a benefit. Shorter dwell times in station reduce the duration of track occupancy, allowing use to maintain the tightest headway required by the aerodynamic design.
Excellent justification for the passenger flight. Now, freight, we are running heavy unit train for commodities.
For freight wagons, structural endurance is key. We will use a heavy-duty open-top wagons like KAI's coal wagons, KKBW, fit with reinforced automatic couplers. Technically, the focus shifts to robust braking, like advanced air brakes with load sensing valves. Crucially, we employ the distributed power DP system across our freight locomotive. This system is mandatory to manage the immense drawbar pull and buff forces that develop along a long train, drastically mitigating the risk of train separation and reducing coupler wear.
Lutfi, in our common gauge system, where passengers and heavy freight share the track, your axle load on freight is my primary concern for rail damage. How do you monitor and manage the wear on the wheel profile for such massive rolling stock?
For freight health, we rely heavily on Bintang's infrastructure, specifically the wheel impact load detector. For early detection of damage like wheel flats in the depots, we will gauging rigs to verify wheel diameter and flange wear are within the tightest tolerance limits. Although simpler, freight bogies require frequent time-based inspection supplemented by condition-based monitoring using axle box data, as they are vulnerable to handling damage.
Noted. This strategy is clear. High-tech condition-based monitoring for abuse and rigorous time-based inspection for the heavy, simpler freight vehicles. We will create separate maintenance protocol based on these distinct technologies.
Conclusion: the Alma line will utilize EMUs for high efficiency passenger transport and heavy class locomotive to pull robust freight wagon. Lutfi, thank you for this comprehensive breakdown of the flight strategy. We now move to signaling and communication. We must guarantee that the digital control not only maintains safety but also maximize throughput, which means minimizing the headway. Please detail the architecture starting from the central command system, the ATS automatic train supervision, and how it interacts with the ELTMS level 2 core.
Thank you, Yusuf. The overall traffic management is handled by the ATS system located in the operational control center. The ATS is the traffic scheduler. It optimizes train movements against the established timetable, managing routes, priorities, and regulating speed to regain schedule adherence following minor delays. The edge fits its movement strategy to the radio block center, which then executes the commands on the track.
So the ETS is the brain of efficiency and the RTC is the muscle of safety execution. Let's delve into the LTCS resilience. What level of redundancy are we employing for the RTC hardware and software?
The RPC is designed for extreme availability. We utilize 2 out of 3 hardware architecture, meaning we have 3 identical processing units running the same safety critical code, and the output is only executed if at least 2 units agree. If one fails, the system switches seamlessly to the redundant pair without operational disruption. The software itself is certified to safety integrity level 4, the highest level of safety certification for railway system.
Farham, on the field element side, my axle counters are critical for your track occupancy verification, especially given the challenges of maintaining rail shunting integrity in our tropical climate. How do you ensure the reliability of the axle counter health?
The reliability is achieved through robust sourcing and dual verification. The axle counter has utilized inductive coils housed in weatherproof vibration dampening casings near the railhead. They operate in pairs. The counter logic verifies the number of axles entering a block must equal the number exiting. If there is a discrepancy, the system immediately defaults to the appropriate state, ensuring safety. Furthermore, the policies will primarily for location act as an independent physical reference check to validate the segment boundaries defined by the axis counters.
For the rolling stock on board unit, what data transmission rate is required for the DSMR link to ensure the movement authority is updated frequently enough to allow minimal headway without compromising the braking curve.
We require a data update rate of at least 250 milliseconds, ensuring the OPU matches the new movement authority and braking curve adjustment in near real time. To secure this low latency, the Gesinger base stations are connected via a high capacity dual redundant fiber optic backbone. This physical redundancy ensures that if one fiber path is separate due to civil works or environmental impact, the communication link to the RBC remains active via the secondary path.
Farhan, the integrity of the electronic interlocking is vital for my maintenance team. When we request a track possession for maintenance, we rely on the interlocking to electrically isolate that section. What diagnostic do you provide to verify that the point or switches have successfully locked in the safe position?
The electronic interlocking provides extensive real-time diagnostic feedback. Every field element, including the point machine operating the switch, reports its position and lock status directly back to the interlocking via secure data link. The operator in the position receives visual confirmation often through the RTS that the switch point is unlocked. This capability significantly speeds up the clearance process for your maintenance team, reducing the safety margin required for manual verification.
Finally, regarding the cybersecurity layer, we established that the network is segregated. What is the protocol for managing security updates and patches for the Silver software running on the LBC? Given its certification level, patching is inherently risky.
Patch management on Shell4 system is extremely rigorous. Updates are first tested extensively in a mirrored offline shadow system before deployment. Deployment itself follows strict change management protocols. Furthermore, we employ intrusion detection system and frequent audits to ensure the system remains compliant. This design principle of safety over availability means that even if a cyber event were to disrupt the data flow, the system defaults to halting traffic rather than executing an insert command. Our primary defense is the functional safety of the core software, which is impervious to common network attacks.
Excellent. We have validated the three-layer, the strategy, the strategic ETS, the execution core RPC with silver redundancy, and the physical safety verification via redundant external counters and values. Thank you, Farhan. This concludes our meeting today. Thank you all for your brilliant work. Goodbye.
Okay.